Come join me, Libra. It's May 2018, and I wanted to talk a little bit about your horoscope. We won't go into too much nitty-gritty detail of all. I'll talk a little bit about the aspects. And for those of you that are new, I want to keep it simple. I want to talk about the highlights in terms of the transits. And what stands out immediately is this rather difficult component in your chart now, which is the transit of three what we would call first-rate malefics, generally in a natural way of looking at it. However, Saturn is your best planet. It rules the 4th sector and the 5th sector, so it operates well. It still has its natural inclination to challenge you. We've talked about that being here in the area of your domestic life, your property, your real estate, and also your within, as I call it, your inner sense of self. And on top of that, you've had Pluto, the demolisher, as I call it, in conjunction with Mars, which is your marital planet relating to other people and your finances. So this has been somewhat difficult. We see that it's going to trigger a few more challenges when on May 4th the moon enters into the fray. That won't last long, and you see here some of the challenges that are forming. The red aspects are the hard aspects. If you study the dates of that one there is important. You see it's going to be challenging your communication with Mercury and Uranus occupying the 7th house of, it's primarily your marital area, but we see this as business partnerships and also PR, the way you deal with the world generally. A bit quirky this month because you've got Mercury moving into the conjunction of Uranus later in the month. We'll talk about that shortly. But this can trigger all sorts of reactive responses to family members when the moon transits here. Then again here, dwelling on the past, the 5th house. I'm trying to keep an eye on some. There's a lot of big changes here, and this is the big one for you, really the massive one. This planet Uranus moves to a new sign only once every 7 or so years because its cycle is an 84-year cycle. So we see that it's been disruptive for the most part. Well, I shouldn't say just disruptive. It can be disruptive, but it can also be very enlightening and very progressive. It can progress relationships. And because it rules your 5th house, it tends more to be a good planet for you than a negative planet. Communications are going to be really way left of field. You might be exploring new avenues of communication with your loved ones. Moon triggers that here after the 12th. Look at it moving up here to that Mercury Uranus situation. Again, that squares are still occupying anger, disputes, argumentation. Mercury moves on the 14th, and this is the 8th house that I've been waiting to talk to you about, because right there on the 15th we see the transit of the moon to the sun, which is what we call a new moon. Mercury is also there, so whereas the cycle was predominantly here to do with your domestic sphere, here to do with your relationships, see the shift here mid-month into money. Then Uranus, that's the big change I'm talking about. You might not see this immediately because, as I said, this is a long-term transit. It's a 7-year transit, but get ready for a roller coaster ride. You won't know what's going on, and you must be careful in doing any business with other people because they may be saying one thing but doing something completely different at the other end of the spectrum. Keep your wits about you. Don't be afraid to ask for clarification on any matter relating to to business or commerce. 8th house is also banking, finance, insurance, savings. So this might suddenly cause you to shift the way you do things. Look, Mars moving into the 5th house. Now that's interesting. I'll stop there for a moment because this has to do with taking risks. They say this 5th house has to do with love affairs and relationships, and also financial speculation like the stock market. Well, isn't a relationship one of the biggest gambles you're going to take? Really, when so many of us end up in the divorce courts. You'd say that this has a double meaning here, because this 8th house is finance. This fifth house is speculation. Yes, it can be financial speculation, but this eighth house is also sexuality, while this fifth house is also love affairs. So you can see there's many different levels that we can actually sort of gauge the meaning of these planets. So I'd say two things there: speculation in love and sex, speculation in money and finance. Be careful, however. Look, these planets are not in a good aspect. So that would tell us that you're being reckless here on both counts. So Libra, take your time. I've talked to many of you who are long-term visitors here about being reckless and being changeable and not being able to come to a decision, because you want to make your decision before you've analysed things carefully enough, and then after you've made your decision, you want to go back and talk to your friends and figure out whether it was the right decision or not. Hold back, be a little bit more patient, and that you're going to need lots and lots of when you've got this combination. Mars squaring Uranus. That's also on a worldly level not a very, very good aspect to have. It can indicate violence and abrupt sort of political circumstances. Notice here Venus, your ruler, is in a beautiful, I love this. I love it when the ruling planet is in the 10th house here. This is your work, self-esteem, feeling good about yourself. Let's forget this now, shall we? Let's talk about all the good stuff. Sun moving in your 9th house, travels, you've got the opportunity here. This is a luck sector. This is a career sector. You've got good things happening in your work. Here we see in the latter part of the month, I'm waiting for this very last big aspect. Here's some luck, not only with Venus. Look at this trine aspect to the Moon and Jupiter. Wow, this is great for your finances, Libra. And then the trine aspect here to Neptune in your 6th house, bringing with it imagination, idealism, all sorts of beautiful things. And I wanted to say to you there, just as it moves out of there, you have the full moon on the very last day of the month, bringing with it again another dose of good luck, opportunities for travel, communicating emotionally. And mind you, look at this. Moon is ruling your 10th house of career, that important professional area, along with your ruler and the sun moving in the upper part of the horoscope. An excellent omen for good fortune, good luck, good karma. Yes. I hope to see you next month, and I'll give you more good news. But in the meantime, please subscribe. We need your subscriptions. We need your support in some way or other, even if you don't want to part with your hard-earned cash. You can visit my site. I'd really appreciate that. astrology.com.au. Loads more stuff here on the month, the days, the years, your life and destiny. There it is, astrology.com.au. Until next month, enjoy. Look forward to your company again. Bye-bye.